What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. In this video, we are going to talk about why I would choose Albania over Poland for long-term living. But before we get into that, smash the like button, costing nothing, it means the world to me, really helps me out with the algorithm. And if you are interested in more content like this, then consider subscribing to the channel. Now, with all that said, let's go ahead and get on into this video. Now, I am going to make this from the perspective that I do not have access to Europe all year round already. So I lose all my residencies. I'm starting from ground zero. And from that perspective, here is why I would choose Albania. First and foremost, visa-free access for up to a year for United States citizens. That is an enormous benefit that gives you access to most of Europe. So you could spend 9 months in Albania, then 3 months in Poland, or 3 months in Lithuania, or Portugal or Spain or wherever else you want, and that is really powerful. Or maybe you just want to spend the entire year in Albania and do like a weekend trip to Italy or Greece or something like that. That is a really cool benefit. Now, I know Poland does have the bilateral US visa agreement where you can leave Poland, come back, get 90 days again, but once again, is that really an efficient and effective long-term strategy? Because what if you want to go to Spain or Portugal or Greece or Italy or Romania or some of these other Schengen countries that are pretty cool and interesting? That's really going to limit you unless you get residency in an EU country. So that is one massive thing that goes in Albania's favor from the jump. I would also say another massive favor for Albania from the jump is the fact that it is non-Schengen, so you can go to these other places for weeks or even months, and you can live your life and have multiple more experiences, whereas if you're in Poland, you have to go to non-Schengen places. So you're talking Albania, you're talking Moldova and Ukraine and some other places like that. But I think that is 2 points in favor of Albania. Now, another thing is the fact that Albania, for my money, has better food. And I realize that is a bit subjective, so we won't really divvy out points for that since it's just so subjective. But climate-wise, here is another thing that is massively in the favor of Albania. It has warm summers and mild winters, so it has a decent climate all year around, and that is something you cannot say for Poland. I'd also say that the beaches are actually decent in Albania, especially in comparison to Poland. So in Poland, during this time of year, the sun sets at like 3:30 and it probably comes up at like, I don't know, 9. Don't quote me on that because I didn't Google it, I didn't look it up, I didn't come up with actual average year-round statistics, but the days are short, the sun doesn't really come out. This is like one of the first days that I haven't seen sun in like a year in Mexico, which is absolutely wild, right? So this is like standard in Poland at this time of year, but not just this time of year, probably for like half the year, 6 months of the year. So it's going to be cool, it's going to be depressing, you're not going to see the sun, might be getting rained on, you might be getting snowed on, and it affects the mental health and the happiness of the general people around you. Now, when summer rolls around, then is when a place like Warsaw, Krakow, Wrocław, the Tri-Cities, Gdansk, Gdynia, and I can't believe I'm forgetting the last one off the top of my head, Sopot, start to become cool, friendly, accessible, and the general energy is much better during the summer months and the warmer time of the year. So like, let's say middle of spring is when it really gets a bit more interesting. So climate-wise, you have to give that to Albania as well. Then another thing is the safety. I would say the safety in both these places, you are going to be safe no matter where you go. Now, I know Albania doesn't have the reputation of a place like Poland, but Albania is relatively safe, and so I'm not going to give out points for being safe or not, because both these places, you're going to be extremely safe. I saw women walking around in Albania, in both Tirana and Durrës, both the cities that I was in, at late night hours by themselves, and that shows me a level of security because if it wasn't safe to do that, they wouldn't be doing that unless it was dire circumstances. Now, one thing I do have to give in the favor of Poland is the fact that Warsaw, best city out of both these countries by far, highest level of infrastructure, the best nightlife, the most things to do, best food scene, although I would say the food scene in Poland, you're not really looking for Polish food. You're looking for different cuisines from other places, and that is extremely high level. A lot more Michelin star restaurants, although Michelin star is a bit of a marketing trick, but for the most part, Michelin star restaurants are extremely good. And so the high-end life in Warsaw, definitely better than what you're going to get in Albania. But that's why I said spend 9 months in Albania, and then you can spend 3 months in Poland, whether that's Warsaw or anywhere else in Europe. And so it's kind of a situation where you get the best of both worlds, where you get Albania and then you get Poland when it's good and when it's desirable, and so on and so forth. So, like I said, I'm not saying that Albania is just massively superior, because it is definitely on the rise. The infrastructure is lacking. I would assume the healthcare is better in Poland, but Poland, I've heard some complaints with the healthcare system. I've never gone through it, so I'm not entirely sure. But I would be lying if I said Warsaw wasn't the best highest level city out of these options. Then finally, because I know many of you are going to ask this question, how do the women compare in Poland to the women in Albania? And here is what I will say on this topic. Now, I've said this multiple times. The women in Poland facially are very attractive. They're not necessarily my type, though. They're like stick figures. In Albania, they facially probably are not as attractive on average as the women in Poland. That said, much more my body type, and their skin color is a little bit more of like the olive Mediterranean kind of look. And just body type wise, that fits my preferences a lot more than the typical woman in Poland does. So that includes the Ukrainians, although the Ukrainians are a little bit more curvy, I've noticed. So keep that in mind. But the Belarusians also, same kind of thing. Attractive, but not my personal body type. So when it comes to dating, I would enjoy dating more in a place like Albania, because it just has a lot more volume of what I am looking for. You may not be looking for that same body type. You might be looking for what my internet buddy Connor Klein talks about, the tall model looking girls who are slender, tall, most likely blonde, and extremely attractive. Nothing wrong with that. That's just not my personal cup of tea. Now, I'm not saying I like super fat women. I just like skinny girls with, more of the Coke bottle figure. Not obese and overweight, but I am not interested in a girl who has the body I had when I was a 10-year-old boy. I would also say that there is going to certainly be more volume in Poland because it's a bigger country, especially in Warsaw, because there's a lot more immigration to Warsaw. So you get a lot of the Belarusians, other people from other places in Europe, you get the Ukrainians. And so there is more variety, more diversity, and ultimately more volume as well. I would also say that it's probably going to be easier to date in Poland because they do have more of the Western values than a place like Albania has, for sure. Now, I'm not saying Albania is going to be particularly difficult because I don't have any experience in Albania actually dating someone long term, so I don't know how that would be. So it could be bad, it could be good, but when I was there, they were showing your boy some love. But once again, I'm not interested in going for like one night stands and things like that at this point in my life. But I get the vibe that it is significantly more traditional and less Western culture than other places. So that means it's not going to be much of a hookup culture. But if you're going to be there 9 months a year, you don't need to worry about, first night lays or whatever it's called, first date lays, or straight to the house game. I don't even know what it's called nowadays. I'm getting a bit too old for that stuff. So when it comes to the dating, I would probably give advantage to Poland. That said, if you're an American, you're probably going to get even more added value because there's not a lot of Westerners in Albania compared to Poland, where the local competition in Poland is going to be much higher than the local competition in Albania. I mean, just from a like financial perspective, I know dating is not all about finances, but the local guys in Albania aren't going to be able to really have it like that, if you know what I mean, because their economy isn't to the level of the Polish economy. I mean, the Polish economy, their federal minimum wage higher than the United States federal minimum wage, which, I mean, you shouldn't be comparing yourself to people who make minimum wage, but there's a lot more money in Poland amongst the local crowd than there is in Albania. Add into the fact that Albanians, extremely friendly and approachable, probably more approachable and friendly than the typical Polish person, and the fact that most high-level Polish women have probably met someone who is a foreigner. They've probably been to all different sorts of places in Europe, and so there's not really anything you can do to increase your value just by being a Westerner. Now, in Albania, you have a little bit more value because they haven't really seen many people like you before, because people just don't travel to about Albania like that. So who really knows, but I will just say I would give this point to Poland as well. And I'm not really keeping tally, so that's probably like, I don't know, four points to 1 or 2 points to Poland. I almost forgot one thing because I really don't put this into consideration, but also when you're talking about value for money and cost of living, obviously that is a point that goes in favor of Albania because it is a fraction of the cost of Poland, or specifically Warsaw. So I use this option quite a bit because in Albania you can get a beachfront condo in a nice area off Airbnb, which means inflated prices, for $500 or less per month. Good luck finding ideal accommodations in Warsaw for $500 per month. And you certainly can't get it on a nice beachfront because that doesn't exist hardly anywhere in Poland. I mean, it doesn't exist in Poland, period. But I mean, you could say in the Tri-Cities, during summer it is decently nice, but that is a really cold ocean and not the nicest beach, but it is what it is. So that is another thing that you may take into consideration. But like I said, there is no city quite like Warsaw in Albania. So for the best city, it would definitely be Warsaw, and that obviously has great value for your money. But as an overall country, I would say the value for your money is better in Albania, and it is a lower cost of living as well. So those are a couple points you could give to Albania in comparison to Poland, with the exception of Warsaw, because there's no city like Warsaw in all of Albania. So for all those reasons, that's why I would personally choose Albania over Poland long term, but I would choose probably to spend the summers in a place like Warsaw if that was the setup that I was going for, because Warsaw is an elite world-class city, great value for your money. And I mean, to be very transparent, I would probably spend some of the time in Warsaw, some of the time in Prague, and maybe a little bit of time in Vienna or some other places as well. And I would definitely be taking trips to like Italy or Greece, but I would spend a significant amount of time in places like Prague and Warsaw as well. And maybe even like Tallinn, especially during Christmas time. I hear Tallinn has an amazing Christmas market. So I'd probably allocate a little bit of time around Christmas for other places in Western Europe. But that is a completely different tangent, and we're going to wrap up this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. And as always, peace, much love.